right, we are going to give it a go. Thanks, guys, for asking me to do this. I really appreciate it. Of course, Glenn Haussman. Question number one. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Okay, I live here on Long Island, New York. I grew up in a town called Commack, Commack, and then went to college, came home for a little while, lived in New York City, in Upper East Side of Manhattan in my 20s, and then in my 30s and early 40s, I lived in Brooklyn, and then moved back out to Long Island. I got twin boys that are 19 that just finished their first year at college. I can't believe it's been a year already. So that's exciting. Also married and have some cats. All right. So as a renowned hospitality podcast host and social media influencer, well, thank you for the renowned part. What inspired you to start your journey in podcasting world and become a prominent figure in the hotel industry? Well, I don't think you ever start your journey thinking about becoming a prominent figure. I think that is a result of hard work and a result of having a vision and fulfilling that vision without being clouded up by what's going on outside. But I started my journey into podcasting because I really got into podcasting 10, 12 years ago or so. And I was one of the few people that were listening to them at the time. And I really, really enjoyed that medium. It reminded me when I was growing up in the 70s and early 80s of AM talk radio, where you could have more meaningful, in-depth conversations, except these conversations, back then at least, weren't interrupted by commercials every few seconds. So it's a great opportunity to really get to know somebody. I was one show I really loved that steered me in this direction was a show in the late 80s called The Late Late Show with Bob Costas. It aired after David Letterman here in the United States. And that was a half-hour show with only one guest and a full conversation. And I love that. I love that you could really get to listen and respond and learn things about people. So that was all in the back of my head. And I decided to start the podcasting because I saw it as a viable new medium. So I went ahead and I decided to do that. And quite frankly, I got tired of doing what I was doing. I think a big part of your life is trying to reinvent yourself every 10 or so years. That's not a hard rule. That just seems to be the rule I've followed in my life. And that was one of the things that just felt right. And I wanted to do because it was new, it was different, it was exciting. With 25 years of experience in the hotel industry and broadcasting, what significant changes have you witnessed over the years? And how have these changes impacted the hospitality sector? All right. So I've seen so much change. Literally almost every aspect of the hospitality industry has changed. Not the core values of providing clean, comfortable rooms for customers and creating a positive experience, but the entire way the industry has run. When I first came into the business, select service hotel franchising was not so much. And that has really redefined the entire hospitality industry. Back then, there was zero technology really that was going to some of these hotels. I mean, there was a couple of reservations and systems and stuff, but like every element of the guest experience and how you get that business and how people interact with hotels, literally everything has changed. From the popularity of travel made by, lower airfare costs since the late 1970s, for example, to how people feel now it's an American right and responsibility to go out there and travel and do new things. Things have changed. Technology now is making it easier to connect with the guests in meaningful ways if used properly. Back when I first started, you would have a book that you would look through and go, oh, there's this particular hotel in this particular town. Now, everything is different. And the way hoteliers have to think about operating their hotels, completely different than it was than 25 years ago. All right, next question. As a host and moderator of various industry events, what are some key trends and insights you believe are crucial for hoteliers and travel industry professionals to be aware of? I think key trends are everybody is getting behind things like extended stay properties. As I'm recording this, in the background over here is Hilton just announced a brand new extended stay brand geared towards travelers of 20 days or more. This is now showing the maturation of the extended stay segment, which is really taken off in the next number of years. The next big thing that I see coming up after this extended stay thing wears out is outdoor focused living when it comes to hospitality. We're going to see a lot more brands focused on outdoor life. I believe that glamping and stuff is going to become much more to the fore. I see a lot of RV parks adding those types of things in the next coming years. I see established hotels and resorts that want to have different elements, adding maybe some of these elements to it. And of course, in 5 years, we're all going to be required by law to play pickleball at hotels. So there's that too. As far as what insights are crucial for hoteliers to believe is, don't listen to what everyone else is doing and saying, because they aren't necessarily going to be right. If I had listened to what people told me I should be doing all of the time, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. We all have a lot of experience in our lives, and we all have a gut that we must trust in. And if we deny trusting in that gut, well, that's when we are going to run into problems. So you got to get out there and trust the gut. The people that are most successful in hospitality, and particularly if you're looking at it coming in the during and post-COVID period that we're in right now, is that the people that made bold moves and made investments when everyone else was scared are highly successful today. Those bets paid off big. So a lot of times in hospitality, everybody's going to be telling you one thing. And that one thing usually comes from 3 or 4 CEOs sitting on a stage that are making a statement. And people aren't utilizing enough critical thinking to think why the CEO said that. What is their point of view? What are they trying to accomplish with being on stage? Instead, people just take these things as sacrosanct. I go to a lot of cocktail parties. You hear what they say. Everybody parrots it back as if it is independent thought. I would like everybody to think a little bit deeper, trust on your gut, use critical thinking to figure out what is going on, and then best deal with it. There's no one size fits all solutions for it. But one other insight, find better ways to make human connections with guests at the property level. That is the future. Technology has the possibility of overshadowing everything and taking control away from you, the hotelier out there. Don't let that happen. Make sure you find ways to have meaningful interactions from human to human, and then let Skynet do the rest. Little Terminator humor there for you guys. All right, so I do. In your opinion, what are the most important skills and qualities aspiring hoteliers should develop to thrive in the competitive hotel industry? Curiosity. Never, ever, ever think that you can't go far without that curiosity factor. So curiosity is so important to me because it makes you interested in absolutely everything else. It's what gets you out of your comfort zone. It's what gets you to try new things. And that's what it's all about, taking on challenges that you might not feel comfortable with, but will help you to the end goal. Also, an important quality to have is you got to try to get rid of that ego as much as you possibly can. Confidence, yes. Ego, no. Honestly, I'm not that great. You're not that great. None of us are all that great. So by being humble about everything, I think that people will respond better to you. You're going to make better one-on-one connections with people, and those relationships will help you get opportunities that are then up to you to either succeed at or fail at. I love talking about this particular topic as well, because it really has been the basis for my career. Is in every time I try to reinvent myself, I have to find ways to get out of my comfort zone. There was a lot of years there where I would have preferred just to sit behind a computer and type a few words, but now I find myself speaking in front of groups of like up to 5,000 people. I mean, how cool is that? That I was able to take something that scared me so much and turn it into a positive. So you can do that too in your careers as hoteliers, or just generally in life. Next question. You provide keynotes and consult for major hotel and travel businesses. Yes, thank you. Could you share some examples of the most valuable advice or strategies you've offered to companies to seeking to enhance their success? All right, it's not specific advice. It's more of the process of what I call knowing what you don't know. There's a lot of things that I don't know, and I can't make accurate decisions, and I can't think strategically until I learn those things I didn't even know I should know, right? So you've got to get out there, you've got to learn, you've got to be inquisitive, and you've got to figure things out. One of the things that I do is I help hoteliers, I help companies that I go into understand the hotel business, how it all works, who all the players are, the nuances of it, the personalities within it, all of these things that help give you a understanding a lot deeper than what you would see just on a spreadsheet. I add that human element. I add that ability to help create shortcuts so people don't have to spend years figuring it all out on their own. So always try to figure out what it is you don't know, and then try to learn what that is. Particularly if it's stuff you didn't even know you had to know because you didn't know you needed to know. So, all right. I hope that makes sense to you guys. All right. As leading podcaster in the hotel industry, thank you. How do you approach creating engaging, informative content that resonates with your audience? And what advice would you give to others looking to start their own podcast? This goes back to what I said earlier. Curiosity. That's absolutely the key to everything. I don't know. Maybe I was fortunate enough to be born curious, but back when I was just writing, I found things like learning about carpeting fascinating. I just love to learn, and I love to engage with people and learn from them. So you got to be curious and you've got to be inquisitive. In terms of how do I approach creating engaging content, it's just about getting the right guest and figuring out what that particular angle is going to be. We don't do any preparation ahead of time. We don't usually do, a lot of PR people will come and say, what kind of questions you will ask? And I always say, I don't know. I'm going to listen and respond. Obviously, we'll have a framework of topics that we're talking about that works within the individual guest skill sets and comfort factor. But other than that, it's I like to keep things a very loose playground. So that way you could just hear what they're saying and allow that to take you to a place that hopefully was unexpected and incredibly interesting. The other thing is you got to not get so caught up with what's coming next. You need to live in the moment, which really pairs nicely with what I just said, because I've seen a lot of moderators on stage, for example, that have a list of questions and they're so fixated on reading those particular questions and seeing what's coming next that they are missing opportunity after opportunity to get real answers to things that will make people feel successful. And I guess that's the last thing that you should think about is actionable insights. Every one of your podcasts should come away with actionable insights. I find 3 to be the right number. There's just something magical about the power of 3s. 2 is not enough. 4 starts to be like, I'm not going to remember this. 3 seems to work really well. So I try to make sure that everything we have, people can implement things in there. But that's not something that I've planned ahead of time. Those are things that should come organically. And what other advice to start their own podcast, creating impactful content? Figure out what people want to hear and go for it. Make sure you have good production values too, because nobody wants to listen to crappy sounding stuff. Okay, next question. Having been featured and quoted in major publications, what tips do you have for individuals who want to establish themselves as thought leaders? I think it's about getting out there and being a thought leader. Act as if. What are you doing on your social media to further that goal? Well, if you're acting as if, people will start to recognize you in that. What situations are you putting yourself into that is going to allow you to be a thought leader? For me, at the beginning of my journey, I had the epiphany that I had to get out behind that computer desk. So I would find ways to be on panels. Now, social media wasn't the social media we like today. I mean, after all, we were still working with, books to book that hotel, like I said earlier, as opposed to the internet. So there was no real thing as social media. So it was all about getting out there and in person, one-on-one type of networking, or getting on these panels and discussions, either being as a panelist or as a moderator. For me, because I came up through media side, I wound up finding myself in a moderator position and learning that skill set. And during that journey, realizing that I could put in my own thought leadership comments as part of the questions or as the philosophy behind panels. And that helped get me there. Then once social media came to be part of our daily lives, I made sure I was always posting things that were relevant to my audience, not to me. Every once in a while, I could put up something that says, yay me, but nobody wants to hear about yay me. Everybody wants to know how they could do better in their lives, how they could learn. So you have to make sure that you're very, very open, and it's all about the essential nature of giving, not trying to grab attention for yourself. Whenever you start to do those things, and I mentioned it earlier, then people won't look at you in the right way. If you look at the world openly and honestly and share in the spirit of love and giving of information, that is when you will become a thought leader. Yeah, sounds hokey, but it's true. All right. What does it take to be a great interviewer or podcast host? What sets fantastic podcasts apart from a man one? Two things: that curiosity factor, and also everybody thinks that they could do a podcast. Having a conversation with somebody in podcast format or an interview format is extremely different than when you're having it anywhere else. It's very different than when you're having it in your personal lives. It's very different when you're having it at a bar after a conference, for example. There's a rhythm and there's a nature to it, and there's a way of speaking. And I've been, you can't read it if this is the printed interview, but the way I'm speaking right now, it does that. There's a different type of language that you use. There's a way of connecting one part of the conversation to another to make it seem seamless. Podcast hosts that are meh, they don't realize that it's a show, and they don't realize the difference between the way people respond and hearing it is extremely different than in a conversation versus a podcasting format. One of the things that I always say is you got to talk bigger. You got to be wider. You got to be louder. Because what happens is, for some reason in the recorded medium, that then gets toned down a little bit when it hits people's ears. So if I speak in a normal tone, then it's just not going to translate well when people are listening to their ears. It's going to come off boring. It's not going to have that same impact. So you really need to make sure you turn it up a little bit and speak with confidence and always be moving that conversation forward. Pauses that last that long for me, a fraction of a second, feel like an eternity for me. Then you got to be able to figure out how to jump right in and fill the vacuum of open air. I could talk about that forever. So thanks for asking me that question. So the biggest highlights of your career. I think it's always weird talking about yourself, but I think the biggest highlight of my career was started out as the hardest part of my career. At the beginning of COVID, we all suffered immeasurably, and everybody I knew was suffering immeasurably. And I had finally gotten my business, which was 4 years old at that time, to a place that I felt good. I felt comfortable. I felt like I was going to do great in the future, and things were finally clicking for me. Then COVID hit, and it set me back to zero. And I started going online every day and doing the podcast instead of a weekly audio show as a daily 1 hour live broadcast. And we brought together the entire hospitality community. And I just did it in earnest. And I just had nothing else to do. And I thought it would be a good idea to start helping people and create a community of ideas, but I didn't think anything of it. But looking back on it and seeing the impact in all these people's lives that I've made, and I still hear it every day, has been the most meaningful, blessed thing that I've ever been to. To hear people say to me, and I'm getting a little emotional, is say, thank you for bringing us all together. Thank you for giving us direction when we didn't have any. Thank you for helping create a place where we could all work together to find solutions to seemingly unpenetrable challenges. So that to me is the highlight. We've won a couple of awards recently based on that in the last couple of years, which has been really gratifying. But to know that I'm actually helping people's lives has meant more to me than absolutely anything. And I still, to this day, it just doesn't seem real to me, because when I'm recording, like I'm recording for you guys right now, it just everything kind of goes into a vacuum. But then when real human beings come up to you and say something like that, it makes my life. It's been the most challenging career. Well, again, I think it goes back to COVID, basically losing everything and being really fearful. How am I going to pay my mortgage next month? What's going to happen? Is my whole career over? All of those things scared the heck out of me, but I just kept pushing ahead, and somehow the universe has been kind to me ever since. What guiding principle do you live by in your life? All right, I think I may have mentioned this before. And it sounds kind of hokey, but you got to just keep putting love out in the universe. The more positivity and positive energy you put out there, the more you're going to get back to you. So it might actually be the most selfish thing you could do because it's going to help you in the end. But the fact of the matter is, if you are out there, if you are open, if you are generous, if you are honest, if you are portraying yourself as a good human being, and if you have empathy and are kind and considerate, it will come back to you and help you in innumerable ways. Now, you also have to work harder, and you've got to work harder than everyone else. And you've also got to make sure when you're absolutely done for the day and you can't do any more, just do one more thing. It could be a little tiny thing, but one more thing. Those little things in time add up to giant results. So put yourself out there, be a good spirit, work hard, and the universe will reward you in the end. And you're going to get to do what you're most passionate about. That is, if you get out of that comfort zone and find new avenues to make yourself a better and more productive human being. What's the big dream? Well, I'm in my 50s, so I think my big dream is to sleep through the night instead of getting up 4 times every single night. That would be the big dream. The other big dream is just to live a life full of love, hospitality, and positive memories. And that's about it. And I got a phone call. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks.